back to my channel. I hope you guys had a great December and are having a great year so far. So I'm glad to be back. I hope you are too. And this time we are going to talk about something that I had started last year and now I want to kind of round up. So I started talking about the if node, and then I spoke about the switch node, and that was just about like routing, like when you have data that could go down different branches. And it was a very specific kind of routing in that it was deterministic. That means you had clear rules, the very hard rules that could not be broken, and they were very clear in how you expected the value to look like. And this gave you a very deterministic path. Now, one thing you might notice when you're doing your business is that sometimes it's not always deterministic. Like, for example, you might get a message that's about sales but doesn't necessarily use the keyword sales anywhere. Or you might get another one that shows that a customer is frustrated, but there's no way you can build a deterministic rule to tell if a customer is frustrated. So you might want someone to look at it, some sort of intelligence. And this is where AI comes in, because routing doesn't just have to be done deterministically. It can also be done with AI, basically semantic routing. Semantic routing means routing based on the meanings of, or the meaning of the data that's coming in. So it's text, you're routing based on the meaning of the data that's coming in. Does this data say, give us the emotion or the emotional state of the person that wrote it? Does this data tell us whether it's about sales or billing or something similar? And so on and so forth. And that's what we're going to look at today. So n8n has some pretty cool nodes that you can use to do this. So I'm going to walk you through them, and then I'm going to show you a real demo, as you can see right here, where we try to use these different semantic routers and even throw in stuff like the switch node and the if node, just to show you where they would all be useful. So we're going to dive into that. But for a start, let's look at the first one. The first one is the information extractor. So the information extractor, in my particular example, would be this particular node. And you can always find it if you go here, and then information extractor. It's always right there, okay? And what it does is it usually gets input in some form of text, and it's supposed to extract information. Like, it's supposed to give you some form of clean key value mapping, some form of JSON of specific information that you specify you want to extract from that data, right? So the output, as you can see here, is usually JSON fields, and it can be anything, and it's best to use it when you need structured fields for routing, but the data coming in is unstructured. Now, if it's well structured, you don't need an information extractor, but if you want to structure it, then you need an information extractor. Or if it only has like one particular kind of attribute that can be pulled from it, in that case, you just need like a plain old AI model, right? Or if the extraction of information, like the accuracy matters too much. Like, remember, LLMs and AI in general is a probabilistic tool, so you're not going to get 100% accuracy. So depending on which thresholds you're willing to accept, depending on the model you're using, the prompt you're using, and a few other factors, you can decide whether you're willing to settle for that level of accuracy. Usually you'll find LLMs as good as 90% accurate or whatever, depending on the particular task you want to do. So you need to make that decision yourself. But those are the situations where you might think about whether to use an information extractor or not. In fact, in this particular scenario, and I'll explain a bit as I go through these different nodes, what I'm trying to do is we have like some kind of information coming in. So I just set up a basic workflow here. And then I set up an edit field where I gave some text, and then the source of the text, and maybe a timestamp, right? And the text is like a message that we're receiving from whatever channel, email, Slack, what have you, right? And we're supposed to do some stuff with it. So the information extractor basically goes in and checks like different attributes, like what's the intent in the message? Is the budget known? And if so, what's the budget amount? What's the region that this message is coming from? What's the name of the sender, the company, the summary, and so on. And we even give it like a bit of a system prompt here, kind of guided on the kind of output it should put out. And you can see the output here is it gives us some intent. So when you're doing this, you will usually have this text field, and that's where you'll pull in whatever you want analyzed. And then, you know, under options, you can choose add attributes. You won't see it here now because I already chose that option, but you can just keep adding attributes and picking whether they're required or not. I would say if you are definitely sure you don't want it required, or unless you are definitely sure you want it required, do not toggle this because it can give you a lot of errors when the LLM has trouble giving output in JSON, especially when, like, maybe you said that something should be a number, but the LLM gives back null, and then you have like a type mismatch and all of that. So if it's not required, don't put it in there. Do not toggle this. And that's basically an information extractor for you, right? So yeah, so this was the workflow I was talking about. You have like maybe a text coming in, right? And then you just clean it. And then the information extractor is what gives you the different fields. And then after that, you go to a text classifier, which is supposed to say whether we're dealing with sales or billing or partner or spam or support or other. And if it's support, we have a sentiment analysis node that decides whether it's angry, neutral, or positive or something like that. And if it's other, it goes to manual review. And then we have like different nodes here, more deterministic ones, checking like whether the budget is known or what the region is. But in order to understand that better, we should go back to explaining these different things. So I've explained the information extractor. Now we're going to look at the classifier, the text classifier. Basically, the text classifier outputs a label, and you'll see it here because in one of these places I take this information to text classifier. So we came in and we had the information extractor tell us the intent, budget, region, summary, and if we could find the sender's name, also tell us that, and so on. And this is what it gave us. It gave us the intent, the budget, no, and the region. Now we might decide, so we just have like a set field here, and I think this should be budget amount. Let me just correct that because I know it will give me an error. This is just from previously when I was working on this stuff. Let's see. I'm gonna have to just reload this. And basically start executing it from here and see what we get. Okay, so there we go. There we go. Of course, budget amount is undefined because it's not here, but in the event that it is, it will appear. And you have like this stuff, and you can see where there's no value, it gives back null and so on. So we have this. So we have a bunch of information, and like the first place we might want to take it is to a text classifier. And the text classifier takes some kind of input. And what we do is we give it categories. So it's basically, and you can see that in the system prompt, where we tell it you're a strict routing engine, choose exactly one category from the list below, and then we define categories for it. So is it a sales message, and we write like a short description right there? Or is it support or billing or partnership or spam? And you can keep adding categories. So you would have the categories in the UI, you could add them from options, and the system prompt can also be added from the options. That's basically that. And then you have like the option for when like there's an other branch, when the incoming data does not fit any of the categories that you gave the LLM. So that's just to give it a bit more room. And so this is a text classifier, and you can see it's very good for categorizing things. It's like a switch node, but an intelligent one, right? So you use this when intent is implied and wording varies. This is where the real value of semantic routing comes in. You know, you see that it's according to the meaning of the words. You should avoid it when the category already exists. So if the category is already in the incoming data, like there was like something in the JSON right here. Let me see, where is that? If there was something in the JSON right here that said category, then you might not need something like this. Or if maybe a simpler if switch works. Again, it's only for like when meaning really matters. So if meaning doesn't matter as much, or you know you already have the category coming in, don't over engineer, right? And then finally we have the sentiment analysis. So just to go back, we have this, and like from the text classifier, if the message is categorized as support, we might want to know what the sentiment is, right? And that's what the sentiment analyzer does. So it basically gives a sentiment label, so it's still categorizing, and usually sentiment is about like what it feels like. Now the main difference between a sentiment analysis node and a text classifier node is the text classifier is about different categories, Well, sentiment analysis is about different sentiments or how feelings, the emotional aspect. So, I mean, technically, you could maybe use this sentiment because it's AI under the hood. You can probably process both as like a text classifier, and you could use this as sentiment analysis. But the way they were just built up, I think maybe even like in terms of like the system prompt templates they have under the hood, this one is just mostly for catching the sentiment of a word, the meaning of a word, the emotional weight of a word, and so on. And if I run it here, you'll see that it will probably tell us whether this message was. It says here that it's a frustrated message. And this is the text. This workflow keeps failing and I'm honestly fed up. It ran fine yesterday, now every execution errors out. I've retried multiple times, nothing works and it's blocking my team. I need someone to look at this today. Yeah, that sounds very frustrated. And you know, we have all these no-op nodes because you might want to do other stuff beyond here. So I just didn't build it out entirely. I just wanted to show you these things. But like, maybe you want to go to sales or something else to be flagged for review by the support team and so on. Now, just to give you some good matchup with like the if node and the switch node. So we've been doing semantic routing. Another thing you might want to know is whether the budget is known from the message coming in. And if you execute that stuff, because there's already something coming in saying whether the budget is known or not, then, you know, you can have the if node because the category already exists and it's pretty clear. You don't need any kind of intelligent routing there. Or sometimes you might have like a message coming in and it says what the region is. Is it the Kenya? Is it the US? Is it some other region? Because you already told the information extractor here, and I'll show you in under region and also under the system prompt. Region says determine the region from the message. Return exactly one of KE, US, and other. Use KE if Kenya is mentioned. Use US if United States or US location is mentioned. Otherwise, use other. So it has very clear rules for how to do the output there. And I think I also mentioned it in the system prompt down here. Right? It's like allowed values for intent, allowed values for region, and so on. So by the time it comes here to the switch node, it's a pretty clear thing, and you can have hard rules and then, you know, calculate it and it does a reliable thing. So that gives you a sense of the difference between where you should use semantic routing, which is a little more complex, versus deterministic routing, which is a little less complex. And that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoy that lesson and I hope you're understanding routing better when it comes to n8n. As usual, you can reach out to me. I'm gonna post the assets that I've used in this tutorial in the description box and anything else I think can help you. And as well as my email if you want to contact me, if you want us to talk about an automation you want us to do for your business and so on. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next episode. Ciao, Bella, guys. Bye-bye.